Hello everyone, today's video is another Q&A video talking today about biofilms, methylene blue, sinus issues, and I think something else, but we'll see the list when I bring it up here. As per usual, nothing that I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. And if at some point you wouldn't mind taking a quick moment to please like, share, subscribe, and or post a quick comment on the video, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. As you can see, I am still doing working from home, making videos from home. Please excuse the casual wear here. Just have a sick family member in the hospital and just working from home until they're better, because I'm spending a lot of time at the hospital visiting them and helping take care of them. So the first question here is about biofilm. So it says, can you combine priority 1 biofilm breaker with silver? So thanks for the question. It's a good question. I've never done it before. I mean, I don't use the Priority 1 biofilm breaker, but I think it's a fine product. I just posted another video saying that, someone saying like, how does this compare to the version that actually has a chelating agent in it? And I think that it's a fine product, just maybe not quite as strong as the chelating agent containing one. I mean, I usually think about silver and other, like, say, the Priority 1 biofilm breaker, like sort of analogous ones, sort of a little bit differently. When I'm thinking about silver, I'm thinking that if it's if I'm using it as a spray for the sinuses, that's totally different. Not going to put Priority 1 biofilm disruptor up the nose. And then I think about silver a lot for systemic biofilms, and then I think about silver for bladder biofilms. I don't really think about silver for gut-related, like intestinal biofilms, because to my understanding, silver is very rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream, which is great, makes it such a good systemic biofilm disruptor. But so it would kind of depend on what the purpose was. But generally speaking, if I wanted a stronger dose of a biofilm disruptor, I'd probably just stick with one. So that being said, I can't think of any good reason why they couldn't be combined. I've just never done it, but yeah, so it's a good question, and I just haven't done it, but it might be a really good idea. So anyways, I'll leave it there. Lots of other questions to answer here, but thanks for the question. If you have anything else specific about that, I'm happy to speak further about it. I think that was it for that video thread. And then the next one here, so a question about Giardia, which is a parasitic infection, protozoal parasitic infection, if memory serves. So it says, can Giardia weaken the immune system? Everything I try to do makes me sicker. So I'm sorry to hear about the, being sicker, assuming it's a Giardia related thing. Yeah, with Giardia, I mean, any infection, an infection of any type that is really inducing a lot of symptoms, I think can weaken the immune system, just from the perspective that the body's sort of busy sequestering resources trying to deal with the sickness, and energy's low. There's maybe gut issues, not absorbing nutrients, like not able to eat as much, not able to absorb nutrients as much. That's going to cause a lot of depletions of important nutrients, and thus cellular energy production pathways in all the cells in the body, including immune system cells, are going to be compromised. There might be more inflammation kicking around, which might influence what type of immune response is going to happen. So in that kind of more indirect way, I think Giardia could absolutely weaken the immune system. I also know that there's this weird link with Giardia, and to my understanding that Giardia has been proven to, in some people, actually induce a lactose intolerance, which I think is just, I mean, kind of weird, because why the heck would it specifically target that? Like, okay, granted, if the lactase enzyme production on the intestinal border is compromised, then, like, sure, it's going to induce lactose intolerance. But to my understanding, it can induce like a long-term, like potentially for the rest of one's life, lactose intolerance, which is, I don't know, I think it's just a little bit odd. But I think that's probably more really, I haven't looked into it in great detail. I assume that's more to do with actual, like, damage or destruction of those lactase producing cells, as opposed to, and then they just kind of don't grow back, as opposed to it being some like immune system dysfunction thing. But maybe it is an immune system dysfunction related thing. I'm really not sure, to be honest. I'm not a Giardia expert, but I think that's all I'm going to say about that one. So thank you for the question, and if anybody has a better answer and wants to post it in the comment section, I'd be curious to know. But that's my best thoughts on it. those are my best thoughts on it. Another question in the same video was, what does it mean if I have a sinus infection and use essential oil nasal spray and then the next day my nose feels stuffed? So just speaking about this generally from what I've seen in my practice, in many cases, patients use essential oil containing nasal sprays and they feel a lot better. They have less stuffiness, they have fewer sinus related symptoms, and it's a great therapy for many patients in my experience. But I do have some patients where they do get stuffy, or like they have more, their noses are runnier, they get more congested, that type of thing. My best theory around that for what I've seen in my patients is that essential oils, while they are wonderful and have all these therapeutic properties, they are pretty caustic. They're pretty irritating. I've sprayed lots of diluted essential oils up my nose over the course of time, and I can attest to the fact that like it doesn't feel great. And especially when, like, let's say I historically have used a lot of diluted frankincense essential oil nasal spray if I'm fighting off a cold or if I have a cold. And what I found historically was that if I, and many times that would just fight off the cold before I actually got fully sick, which is wonderful. That's why I use it, because it was working well. But sometimes I would still get sick, and the duration of me being sick was always quite low. Maybe 1 to 2 days of being notably symptomatic, and then I was pretty much back to normal. But I found that if in those instances where I did become fully symptomatic with a cold, I would find that when I would spray that frankincense up my nose, it would actually cause me to have a runnier nose. It really irritate things. It was like really unpleasant, and I would still do it because I knew historically that it would help me to have a shorter duration of being sick. But it was really, really irritating. Nowadays, I mostly use silver hydrosol spray, and I don't have that problem at all, which is great. I find it works better. I can administer it more often, and if I do still wind up getting fully sick, it's just not a nightmare to spray it up my nose and like make all these symptoms worse. So my presumption is that the mechanism of action there is it's probably just it's irritating to the tissues. It's going to cause some mast cell activation, and there's going to be some subsequent histamine release and congestion or runny nose or something like that. So I think that, I mean, prior to making that connection, I would have said like, oh, it's probably because we're breaking down biofilms, we're killing off microbes too quickly, something like that. And that could be the case. I mean, I do have some cases, I have had cases where I think that is probably what happened, because it was just a very transient thing, where maybe for the first few days at a higher concentration of the spray, then there was more stuffiness or runny nose or something like that. But then I had other patients where it was just always happening. It wasn't like a little blip. It was just, there was always noticing it was increasing their congestion or runny nose or something like that. And so in those cases, we just switched to a different nasal spray, sometimes an even stronger one, like a biofilm disrupting one or something. And they tolerated it just fine. And so that proved to me, after I saw that enough times, like, oh, I think this is just irritating some mast cells in the nose, in the sinuses. So that's my prevailing theory on that one. That was a fun question to answer. All right. And then the last one here. Oh, right. Good old methylene blue. Man, oh man. Not a day goes by I don't get a methylene blue question, which I'm glad. It's a fascinating topic. Just, I don't know, amuses me for some reason. So it says here, can people even on relatively low dosages experience detox symptoms when starting to use methylene blue? I have taken it for 2 weeks with no problems, and at an initial dosage of 20 drops twice a day with a 1% solution. I weigh approximately 64 kilograms, which for our American counterparts would be like 145, 150 pounds. I have almost always experienced detox symptoms, so just thought I'd ask for on a more general basis. Yeah, so in my experience, any given supplement could cause potentially anyone to react to it at any given dose. So I've had patients, take like 1 drop of an herbal formula and have a big flare up from it. 1 drop of methylene blue would fit into that category as well, potentially. So, after the question being like, can people react? It's like, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you are. So yes, definitely can happen. It's just always that question of like, what's the methylene blue actually doing? And at a low dose like that, like it's at an antioxidant level. So what would upregulating those antioxidant levels be potentially inducing? And I have a few other videos about that in my armamentarium here, so I won't get into it here. But yeah, it's definitely something that can happen at that kind of a lower dose. I'm going to leave it there for now. Any questions or comments, just post in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can.